This kid's life ended just because he accidentally bumped into some unhinged guy who was having a bad day. This golf pro had everything end for him because this dealer picked a lake on a private golf course to dump some bodies. And this girl cheated on her husband and then ended it for both of them. Let's get right to these stories, beginning with number 5, Unhinged Actions. Deshaun Hill Jr., a 15-year-old high school athlete, was let out of school early one day. Hours later, he crossed paths with Cody Fohrenkam and never made it home. His family later reached a $500,000 settlement with Minneapolis Public Schools, arguing the district failed to notify them about the early release for a protest. But despite overwhelming evidence linking Fohrenkam to the crime, he was set free. Cody Fohrenkam, 30, was convicted of second-degree charges in Hill's case after a 4-day trial. Prosecutors said Fohrenkam had been searching for his stolen phone when he ran into Hill, who was walking to a bus stop after being dismissed early from school. Earlier that day, Fohrenkam was at a convenience store when someone punched him in the face and stole his phone. Witnesses said that he spent hours angrily searching for the thief, stopping and confronting multiple people. Surveillance footage showed Hill and Fohrenkam eventually passing each other on a sidewalk, possibly brushing shoulders. Fohrenkam then stopped, turned around, pulled a firearm from his backpack, and fired 3 times. Hill, wearing an orthopedic boot from a football injury, was struck multiple times while walking away. Witnesses placed Fohrenkam at the scene, and forensic evidence supported the prosecution's case. It was pretty open and shut. Jurors deliberated for less than an hour before convicting him, leading to a 38-year sentence. Justice seemed served until the Minnesota Court of Appeals overturned the conviction. The appeals court ruled that key statements made by Fohrenkam during a jailhouse interrogation had been improperly obtained. When Minneapolis police questioned him at the Carleton County Jail, he was already in custody for an unrelated charge and scheduled for release. However, law enforcement interrogated him without establishing a legal basis to continue holding him, a constitutional violation. At that point, he was no longer lawfully in custody, making his statements inadmissible. It was a dumb procedural mistake that the prosecution never addressed. Since there was enough evidence to keep him detained, police could have just followed due process. But for whatever reason, they didn't, and the conviction was overturned. Prosecutors now plan to retry the case in April of 2025. They're pushing to include key evidence, such as a videotaped police interview with Fohrenkam, though legal challenges remain over its admissibility. Even without it, they argue there's still enough evidence to convict him again. Deshaun Hill was a standout athlete and honor roll student, known for his leadership and positive influence at North High. His passing is undoubtedly a tragedy. So many things that happened that day were just bad luck. From Fohrenkam getting his phone stolen to Hill just happening to be out of school at a time he normally wouldn't have been. For whatever reason, Fohrenkam didn't call the police or even check his phone's location, which is stupid, and instead took the law into his own hands. Sadly, the results speak for themselves. And while it's frustrating that his conviction was overturned due to a procedural issue, constitutional rights such as due process exist for a reason. Due process keeps law enforcement accountable. If we're going to use government power to strip someone of their rights, we need to be absolutely sure we're doing it the right way. The system isn't perfect, and mistakes happen, but the alternative, unchecked power, is far worse. Number 4, wrong place, wrong time. A shocking crime unfolded at the Pinetree Country Club in Kennesaw, Georgia, back in 2021, when 3 men lost their lives due to the reckless actions of one man, Bryan Rhoden. This case, which started as a botched illegal substance deal, turned into a horrifying chain of events that ended with a senseless loss of life. The crime began when Rhoden planned to buy $120,000 worth of stinky plants from a guy named Henry Valdez, who had the product transported to Atlanta by another guy named Paul Pearson. But instead of just paying for it, Rhoden just kidnapped both men, binding them with duct tape and zip ties before stuffing them into the back of a truck. Looking for a place to dispose of them, he searched online for lakes near me, which ended up being about as dumb as you'd expect. The search led him to the Pinetree Country Club, a golf course. So Rhoden drove onto the golf course in a white pickup truck, but his plan instantly fell apart when golf pro Gene Siller happened to be nearby. Seeing some suspicious random white truck driving on the course in the middle of the day, Siller went to go see what on earth was going on. But as soon as he got close, Rhoden immediately opened fire, hitting Siller before turning his firearm on Valdez and Pearson, ending all 3 of their lives. Authorities arrived to find Siller's body on the 10th green, while the 2 other victims remained in the truck with their hands, legs, and mouths still bound. The unnecessary crime devastated the victims' families. Rhoden was caught and arrested 4 days later, 25 miles outside of Atlanta. As of the release of this video, Rhoden, 26, pleaded guilty to 17 counts, including multiple felony and aggravated charges. In exchange for his guilty plea, he avoided capital punishment, but was sentenced to life in prison without parole, 3 consecutive life sentences, plus 2 additional life terms, and 5 more years. The court proceedings provided little comfort to the families left behind, even though the punishment was about as severe as it could get. Rhoden's complete lack of remorse shocked Siller's widow and children. He never once apologized or expressed any sort of regret. Not that an apology would have changed anything, but his indifference only made it worse. Pearson's widow described a sorrow that will never fade, while Valdez's stepfather struggled to comprehend the needlessness of it all. The saddest part is that Gene Siller lost his life just for doing his job. Not as a cop or someone chasing danger, but as a golf instructor with 2 young kids who now have no father. And all because Rhoden was too dumb to realize the lake he picked was in the middle of a golf course, and he was too trigger happy to think about it twice. Golf courses aren't exactly abandoned either. He had to see people while driving on it, right? That's like dumping bodies in a lake at a public park in broad daylight, then panicking when there's witnesses and deciding to start shooting. We're glad this heartless idiot will be locked up for the rest of his life. By the way, if you're enjoying these stories, be sure to hit that subscribe button and make sure you click on the subscription bell to turn on all notifications so you don't miss anything from us. Number 3, ruined lives. In Memphis, Tennessee, 28-year-old Jalen McCollins spent over a month on the run after authorities say he forced his way into his ex-girlfriend's home and ended her and her father's lives. Now he's behind bars, facing charges that could put him away for life. The tragic events took place inside the home of Anthony Stewart, McCollins' ex-girlfriend. Surveillance footage showed the 2 arguing outside before he forced his way in. Once inside, the situation escalated. Her father, Gary Newman, tried to intervene but was caught in the chaos. A 911 call from Newman's phone captured the argument, followed by the sounds of shots and then silence. Authorities say McCollins and Stewart had been in a relationship for 3 years, during which she had attempted to leave multiple times. Each attempt was reportedly met with threats, including ones directed at himself. Court records also revealed a history of domestic incidents involving McCollins, though prior cases had been dismissed. After the incident, McCollins vanished, triggering a manhunt that lasted over a month. The Shelby County Sheriff's Office Fugitive Apprehension Team ultimately tracked him down and arrested him in downtown Memphis. Since then, McCollins has appeared in court, where his initial public defender was replaced by a private attorney. His request for bond was denied, while legal proceedings continue. Newman, a veteran and a well-respected member of the community, had apparently tried to protect Stewart from the escalating situation and lost his life as a result. Family members expressed their grief, describing Stewart as a vibrant young woman with big aspirations. Janella Ward, Stewart's mother, wants to ensure that McCollins remains behind bars. He had lived with their family for years, and she had treated him like a son, giving him a place to stay and supporting him through difficult times. Now she struggles to reconcile that kindness with what he did. Losing 2 people she loved in such a brutal way is something she may never fully understand. As of the release of this video, McCollins is facing multiple charges, including first-degree charges for both victims. What makes this case especially tragic is how many warning signs were overlooked. McCollins had a history of terrible behavior, but past charges were dismissed, allowing the pattern to continue. Stewart had tried to leave, but each attempt was met with threats and manipulation, something too many victims face. Now, because of one argument, half a family is gone, and the rest is left to pick up the pieces. Number 2, the small town crime. In Georgia, a magnet fisher made a shocking discovery that helped crack a nearly decade-old case. While fishing for metal in a creek near where a missing couple had last been seen, they pulled up a .22 caliber long barrel firearm. Days later, they returned and found even more. the personal belongings of Bud and June Runyon, a retired couple who had vanished while trying to buy a vintage car from a guy named Ronnie J. Towns. Back in 2015, the Runyons had responded to an online ad for a 1966 Ford Mustang and drove hours to meet the seller, Ronnie J. Towns. He had used a disposable phone to communicate with them, and when the couple arrived in the rural area, they were never seen alive again. Authorities later found their SUV submerged in a pond, and their remains were located nearby, lying separately off a dirt road. Evidence pointed to a robbery, and Towns quickly became the prime suspect. However, despite strong suspicions, the case struggled to move forward. The original indictment was thrown out because the grand jury hadn't been properly selected. By the time prosecutors secured a second indictment, the process was delayed further by court backlogs and complications from the pandemic. Meanwhile, Towns' defense team fought to weaken the prosecution's case, and without the actual firearm used, a conviction wasn't guaranteed. Then came the unexpected break. The magnet fisher's discovery of the firearm changed everything. Ballistics testing confirmed that it was the firearm used against the Runyons. Along with the rifle, the fisher also recovered the couple's driver's license, credit cards, and a cell phone, providing undeniable physical evidence linking Towns to the crime. This was enough for prosecutors to pressure Towns into pleading guilty. Towns was ultimately sentenced to life in prison without parole, bringing an end to a case that had frustrated law enforcement and devastated the victims' families for over 9 years. While the trial was repeatedly delayed, Towns remained in jail the entire time, never released after his initial arrest. So at least he wasn't out free, living his life, right? This case is a sobering reminder of the risks of online transactions. The Runyons had set out to buy a cool old car, but unknowingly walked into a trap. While the internet makes it easy to find great deals, always meet people in a public place to stay safe. A dream purchase is never worth risking your life. Number 1. Entangled Lives. High above Hallandale Beach, Florida, inside a luxury condo overlooking the ocean, something had gone terribly wrong. When police arrived, they found 27-year-old model Sabrina Kresnicki and her husband, 34-year-old Pajdem Kresnicki, a successful day trader involved in real estate and crypto, lying lifeless on their balcony. Just days earlier, they had seemed like a picture-perfect couple. But behind closed doors, their relationship was falling apart. A confession, a confrontation, and a final decision led to an irreversible tragedy, one no one saw coming until it was too late. Neighbors reported hearing heated arguments in the weeks leading up to the incident, often overhearing disputes from the couple's high-rise condo in Hallandale Beach, a ritzy part of Florida. Yet, despite the apparent turmoil behind closed doors, acquaintances said the couple seemed fine in public, showing no outward signs of tensions that were growing between them. However, according to Pajdem's family, Sabrina had confessed to her infidelity, and as a result, Pajdem had wanted a divorce. They believe her cheating was what ultimately pushed Sabrina to a breaking point. Police were sent to the apartment after ShotSpotter, an advanced gunfire detection system, picked up multiple bursts of noise from the unit just after midnight. Responding officers discovered the couple outside on their balcony, their lives having ended in the worst type of confrontation. According to investigators, Sabrina had discharged 5 rounds at Pajdem before ending everything herself. Aerial footage showed what appeared to be bullet holes in the condo's glass doors, along with a terrible mess covering the balcony floor. So much so that it was dripping onto the balconies below. Inside the unit, a teddy bear and a box of roses sat untouched, a heartbreaking contrast to what had just unfolded. Pajdem's family was left reeling, struggling to process the loss. His siblings described him as ambitious, intelligent, and deeply devoted to his family. They recounted how he overcame a severe motorcycle accident years prior, enduring 16 surgeries to save his leg instead of opting for amputation. His resilience and determination were qualities his family admired, making his sudden loss even more difficult to accept. Despite their concerns about Sabrina, some red flags that became clearer in hindsight, Pajdem's family never expected things to end this way. His brother Arbin later reflected that while there had been warning signs, they never imagined it would escalate to this point, especially since the couple had once seemed so in love. To outsiders, this couple seemed to have it all. They were good-looking and successful, but much like of what we see online, reality is often far more complicated. Even when everything appears perfect on the surface, relationships are messy, and what we see rarely tells the full story. In the end, every decision has consequences, and moments of weakness can ruin lives. But remember, we're all human, and we all make mistakes. Click to watch one of these next videos.